You know someone like this, or you are someone like this. A person who was once reliably present in conversations, in plans, in the daily rhythm of other people's lives, and then, gradually or suddenly, was not. No dramatic exit, no explanation, just a slow withdrawal that most people around them could not quite name or account for. And the reason it happens is not what most people assume. The instinct is to call it antisocial behavior, to assume something went wrong, a falling out, a depression, a personality shift. But research into the psychology of high-intelligence individuals reveals something more precise and more interesting than any of those explanations. The withdrawal is not random. It is not disorder. It is, in most cases, a rational response to a specific kind of exhaustion that most people never experience and therefore never recognize. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what he called the optimal experience, the state of flow in which humans feel most alive and most capable. His research revealed that people with high cognitive complexity need more of this state to feel satisfied. They require deeper engagement, more meaningful challenge, more genuine exchange. And the problem is that most social environments, most conversations, most gatherings, most casual interactions do not provide this. They provide something else entirely. Noise, performance, the same loops of small talk that ask nothing and reveal nothing. And for a mind that runs on depth, this is not neutral. It is actively draining. Psychologist Elaine Aron's research on sensory processing sensitivity adds another layer. Roughly 15 to 20% of the population processes experience more deeply than others, including social experience. For these individuals, a single social event generates far more cognitive and emotional data than the same event would for most people. They notice more. They process more. They feel the texture of an interaction, its subtext, its undertones, its inconsistencies, in ways that others simply do not. And while this depth is a genuine cognitive advantage, it comes at a cost. What most people experience as a pleasant evening is, for the deeply processing person, something much more intensive. And intensive things require recovery. This is where the disappearance begins. It is rarely a decision. It is rarely a philosophy. It is usually just fatigue. A gradual recognition that certain kinds of interaction take far more than they give. That the energy required to be present, to perform the social expectations of presence, to sit inside a conversation that asks nothing of the mind. That energy has limits. And when those limits are reached consistently enough, the intelligent person does what any exhausted organism does. They conserve. They withdraw to the environments where the energy exchange makes sense. And those environments are almost always smaller, quieter, and less populated than the ones they left. Psychologist Hans Eysenck's research on introversion and cortical arousal offers a neurological explanation. The introverted brain, and high intelligence correlates strongly with introversion, operates at a naturally higher baseline level of cortical arousal. It is already running closer to its optimal stimulation threshold, which means additional stimulation, noise, crowds, social demands, pushes it past that threshold faster. The withdrawal is not social rejection. It is sensory regulation. The intelligent person is not choosing to be alone. They are choosing not to be overwhelmed. And here is what makes this difficult for the people left behind. The disappearance rarely comes with an explanation, not because the intelligent person is cold or indifferent, but because explaining it requires a kind of self-disclosure that feels both vulnerable and potentially unkind. How do you tell someone that being around them is exhausting? Not because of who they are, but because of how much processing their presence requires. How do you explain that you need to disappear not from them specifically, but from the cognitive load of sustained social presence? Most people cannot find the words for this, and so they say nothing. And the silence reads, to the people watching, as abandonment. Research by psychologist Susan Cain, who spent years studying the inner life of introverts, found that the most common misunderstanding about withdrawal is the assumption that it reflects negative feeling, that pulling back means something went wrong. In almost every case, the opposite is true. The withdrawal is not a verdict on the relationship. It is a response to an internal state that the person withdrawing often cannot fully articulate, a state of overstimulation, of cognitive saturation, of a deep need for the kind of silence in which the mind can finally hear itself. The intelligent person who disappears is not gone. They are recovering. They are in the environment where their brain finally has room to work. In the quiet, in the solitude, in the single deep conversation rather than the room full of surface ones. They will return, usually, but they will return on their own terms. And those terms will always include more space than most people are comfortable giving. You know someone like this, or you are someone like this. And now you know that the disappearance was never really about the people left behind. It was about the limits of a mind that feels everything, and finally needed somewhere to feel nothing for a while.